What's up, everybody? I'm Stan, and welcome to Detail Comics, where we go over comics in detail. This is Shelf Appeal, the weekly show where I go over the comic books I picked up this week, give you my impressions as to what they're all about, let you know whether there's something to go back to the comic book shop for or not. So make sure you subscribe to get one of these every single week. The first book I want to talk about is from Marvel, and it is Spider Gwen number 26. So Spider Gwen 26 continues the Venom, or the Gwenom story arc, which sees our lovely Earth 65, Gwen Stacy, being taken over by the Venom symbiote. And in this issue, she seeks out help from the Silk of Earth 65. This super genius super spy that actually engineered the situation that caused Spider-Woman to come into existence, to cause this Gwen Stacy to become the powered Spider-Person of Earth 65. So, what we get out of here is just a lot of style from Robbie Rodriguez and a little bit more continuation of the plot, a lot of callbacks, and really just kind of a real affirmation of just how much power Earth 65 Matthew Murdock, the Kingpin, still Daredevil, but still the Kingpin of Earth 65, how much power he wields, because it seems like he has S.H.I.E.L.D. under his thumb. It's not a matter of who he owns, it's a matter of when is he going to end up owning you. That's the story that really Jason Latour is trying to get across. Overall, I think that it's definitely one of the better things that's happened inside Spider-Gwen since the early part of the issue, so I'm really excited to see where it goes. But it's still not necessarily anything that's going to be bringing back people in droves to this book. I think that it's definitely much more of a trade and wait kind of title, but it's exciting. There's still a whole ton of cosplay, very popular character. It's just that we need to kind of get a little bit more meaty in terms of these stories, and I think that it's a good step forward. Next, I'm going to talk about one of my favorite books, and that is Renato Jones. So Renato Jones Season 2, this is issue number 5, and this shows us the end of Renato Jones as we know him. So you can take that in a variety of different situations, or a variety of different ways, really, because Renato Jones is an interesting character, because he's this orphan off the streets that was pulled into this environment, given the title of Renato Jones, and kind of thrust into this 1% and above atmosphere. He's basically a street urchin turned billionaire overnight that was trained to simply take out the 1%, and really make them pay for all the greed that they have. So in this story, we've already seen this particular arc, Season 2. In this arc, we've seen the acting president of the United States, which is a corrupt businessman that does nothing but lie, who wants to, make America hate again, and then he's launched all the nuclear parts of the arsenal, blown up a town in Russia, and then proceeded to hold the richest 1% hostage until they transferred all of their wealth, which is about half of the money in the world. And he succeeded with this entire plot until Renato goes up against him. And Renato fails, man. He doesn't necessarily get the job done, but we do get the evident, the backstory of Bliss in a great way that kind of turns on its ear a little bit. So, I was hoping for a little bit more from the Bliss character, but she ends up, blissful in the end. And Renato ends up with the person that he seems to, is a little bit more on his level. So I'm totally down with that. I can't wait to see, Season 3, which should be like Renato Jones International or something along those lines. Multinational, because he's taking it, global. He's not just dealing damage to the 1% inside America. He's going to go Asia, Africa, wherever you are, whatever you have, and however you oppress people that are beneath you monetarily. He's going to show you some vengeance. So I really enjoyed Renato Jones. It's definitely a book that I would recommend picking up in trade. Get the first volume and then wait for the second volume to come out. Definitely something that's entertaining to say the least. Another book that I'm finding particularly entertaining is Eternity. So Eternity number 2 comes out, and it's just this really acidic trip into the other world, or the nowhere kind of situation inside the Valiant universe. So we see, the members of the Divinity, these Russian cosmonauts that have come back. They've settled in Russia. They've got their child, and their child's been stolen to become this new observer of this world, which actually ends up being this kind of flat Earth kind of situation where you've got the future light and the past light, so people that learn from history and choose to make choices, or they decide to make choices that kind of bring about their future, and the other people are just we don't care anything about the past, we are only looking to be part of the future. So they're about to sacrifice the child to the light to create this kind of new observer for this world, to keep it from crumbling and falling to pieces. So, it's funky. It's funky as hell. I can't really complain about it in any way. The art I found was fantastic. Overall, the storyline is very interesting, and the cosmic level stuff is probably the most engrossing thing that I've read since The Ultimates by Al Ewing, and then before that, The Fantastic Four by Jonathan Hickman. So I'm really excited about, the cosmic level stuff is something that very few people really ever do well, and this is Valiant really executing on their kind of their otherworldly events inside the Valiant universe. So I'm really giving them props for that. Definitely something that I'm looking at. Man, I'm going to have to read so much Divinity to get caught up on this. It's just crazy. Then we're going to talk about the biggest book of the week, and that has to be Batman Annual number 2. So Batman Annual number 2 is, it's a heartbreaker, man. It's just a heartbreaker. This is a annual that matters. You can't help but think that this matters. There's nothing in this book that does not matter. This is the culmination. It is the genesis and the culmination, the alpha and the omega of the Bat and Cat relationship told in one story. And if it's anything, it's canonizing this entire relationship as well as other things that are going to be happening in the future. So it's just one of those crazy awesome things that Tom King seems to be doing currently at this point in time inside the timeline. We see the history of Batman. Batman going back to when he first, crosses paths with Catwoman after their introductions and whatnot. And then the game that she plays with him in order to, make him better. And then ultimately, he's already known. He's already been the best. He's there for her. So it's this kind of this cat and mouse game or cat and bat game that kind of intertwines them to kind of create this understanding between the characters. And then ultimately you flash forward to the future and you get this canonization of this now history at that point in time, but things that we have yet to see in the main DC Rebirth continuity. And there's characters that show up that are awesome. So I'm going to do a full review on Batman Annual number 2 because it's just so much fun and there's so much to unpack. So take a look out for that. That is going to be awesome. Man. I was just like, oh man, I can't believe that just happened. It was an emotional moment and I'm sure that other people out there felt that same way. And then the last book that I really want to talk about is Batman Creature of the Night number 1. So this is by Kurt Busiek, and what it's doing is it's telling a story that's not necessarily, it's not in our world. It's in our world. Yeah, it's in our world. It's in a world very much like ours, where Batman is not necessarily a participant in the universe itself. He's more of an icon that's read, in the two-dimensional pages of a comic book. So it's very much a parallel to our world. And the impact that Batman and comic books and characters have on the youth, as well as, those going through trying and traumatic events. So this is all about a child that unfortunately had a very similar history to Bruce Wayne. He even had the name Bruce Wainwright. So, his parents met a tragic end during a home invasion. There's this underlying tension between him and his uncle, and then what he sees, we're getting the kind of recounting of this tale as it happens, and then we get this kind of, past look back from the perspective of his uncle, as well as from the perspective of the child himself. And what he does is he creates a manifestation, and it seems to be a manifestation of not necessarily the best parts of Batman, but the vengeful parts of Batman to kind of cope with these things. And he's having dreams and nightmares, and he sees through the eyes of this apparition that is going around taking care of crime on a given basis. So it's really an interesting tale, and I can't wait to see where Kurt really takes this, just to get a little bit more understanding of exactly what this manifestation is. God, man, it could be some kind of demonic entity, or it could be psychic, or there's a lot of different ways that you could really play this, but it's not your traditional Batman story. Comparing it to a lot of the Elseworld stuff that's come out with Batman recently, I'm still going to have to give the edge to Batman White Knight. It's just a really, really strong book, and the art style from Sean Gordon Murphy is really good. This is also really interesting, but it's in an interesting way where it's not about Batman, it's about the impact of Batman when he's a symbol. So your mileage might vary on this one. It might not necessarily be for everybody. It's something that I'll probably pick up just because it's only 4 issues, but if we're talking about the big winner for this week, definitely Batman Annual number 2. But I want to know what you guys think too, so hit me up in the comments down below and we can start that conversation. As always, if you like what you see, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books, comic book movies, comic book TV shows and games, and anything and everything inside the world of comics.